As regular modern-day consumers, we take for granted how easy it is to grab a coffee filled with spices from around the world. As we scroll through social media on our smartphones, the ingredients in our drink are the last things on our mind. Go back 200 years, and these are the most valuable commodities in the world. Wars started because of them. Empires were built upon them. People have been enslaved. In a way, those rare ingredients mark the start of globalization, and some even helped form the Industrial Revolution. While peacefully drinking our hot and tasty beverage, let's ask ourselves, how did all of this happen, and was it worth it? The first recorded use of cinnamon dates back 5,000 years ago in China by the father of Chinese medicine, Shen Nung. It arrived in Europe around the 1st century, generating such a demand that it was 15 times more expensive than silver. After being dependent on Arab traders for many years, the cinnamon market changed drastically when Vasco da Gama discovered India and later Sri Lanka, which enabled the Portuguese to cut the middleman and gain direct access to the heart of the spice trade. In the next 2 decades, control over Sri Lanka and its cinnamon was taken by Dutch and subsequently British rulers, but it was not until the 19th century when cinnamon started being cultivated on a larger scale. Cinnamon plantations were established, and all of this would eventually reduce the price of this valuable spice. Slightly before Vasco da Gama's successful journey, Christopher Columbus was supposed to find India and return with pepper. Allspice was the closest thing the native Caribbean people could offer him when he did not, in fact, find India. And that's why the spice was wrongly called pimento, which in Spanish means pepper. Meanwhile, navigators would ship nutmeg from the Banda Islands across to China, Java, and Malaysia, where it would eventually reach Europe through Arab and Persian traders. For more than a century, the savvy Bandanese traders were outmaneuvering both Portuguese and Dutch traders while trading with England. And that continued until 1621, when 1,600 Dutch troops invaded and colonized the islands. In the late 16th century, nutmeg was fast becoming the most desirable and expensive spice on the market, with a handful of the nuts being the equivalent worth of a ship or house. The Dutch even traded Manhattan Island to the British for their claim on just one of the Banda Islands, a barely 1 square mile speck of land. Competitive to the popularity of nutmeg throughout the ages, ginger is also one of the world's most favorite spices. It was important in Chinese medicine and was even mentioned by Confucius, while the Romans were the first to import ginger into Europe. For a long time, it remained relatively expensive as it had to be imported from Asia. Then, Spanish colonists came up with a tricky move. They started growing ginger in Mexico and South America and importing it into Europe themselves. 19th century English bartenders used to put out small containers of ground ginger for people to sprinkle into their beer, giving birth to the famous ginger ale. Now, ginger is cultivated from the tropical regions of Central America to China and India, and from Jamaica and Japan to Nigeria and the West Indies so that you can enjoy it in your drink. But the taste of your latte is not only precious, but also ancient. If we take a look at science, vanilla is around 65 million years old. The most common vanilla species, Vanilla planifolia, is a rare, perennial climbing herb grown in the humid evergreen forests of Mesoamerica. Much later, after the Spanish colonization of Mexico, vanilla began making its way to Europe. And later, England and France developed an even greater passion for the vanilla flavor. Queen Elizabeth I was reported to only drink and eat food to which vanilla extract had been added. However, there hasn't been a spice with a bigger impact on our world than sugar. Sugarcane was first domesticated around 8000 BC in Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea, and gradually spread to Asia, China, and India. Sugarcane was first introduced to Europe by Alexander the Great from India, and from the Middle East by returning crusaders. Later, Portuguese and Spanish explorers enslaved African workforce to gain this valuable resource along the west coast of Africa, a horrific dynamic that will define sugar production for centuries. In 1516, after Columbus's adventures, the Portuguese established sugar plantations in Brazil. The suitable climate, the union between Portugal and Spain, and the Portuguese import of African slaves established Brazil as a major sugar production destination. The result? By the end of the 16th century, 85% of the sugar in Antwerp was coming from Brazil. Of course, British, French, Dutch, and later American explorers could not miss out on the sugar opportunity, and also established their own sugar production colonies in the Caribbean. The slave labor and the ever-expanding production lowered the price of sugar, and it became a commodity that the lower classes could also access, which subsequently fueled the Industrial Revolution. Sugar changed the demographics of whole continents, brought down governments, facilitated the development of the world economy, drove the expansion of empires, and in the meantime, changed our diets. So next time you take a sip, think about the long history and sacrifices of humanity laying behind the taste of your drink. Appreciate every smell and flavor that reaches you after a long and painful journey throughout the centuries, and let's hope that next time we venture out to discover and harvest new valuable resources, we'll be able to find a more peaceful way of doing so. This video was made in collaboration with our friends from the Monuments, Museums, and Mojitos podcast. If you want to learn more about a wide range of curious topics like climate crisis and culture, Knossos, Sagrada Familia, or the Giza Pyramid Scheme, go check them out on Spotify and you won't be disappointed.